What's up, guys? This is an episode of Prepper Podcast, but I've not sorted the intro, so it looks a bit different. But we are still here, and I'm joined by Andy. How you doing, Andy?
Yeah, not bad, mate. You?
Yeah, I'm good. Andy's joined me because you are ex-service personnel as well. What can you tell us what you were in?
Royal Artillery.
As displayed right behind you for anyone that didn't see it. Just say hello to the comments. We've got Philip Hull, who we will reference shortly. Miss Worm's in there, moderating you all. Champion on top, usual. Lady J, bonjour, tout le monde. Okay. Polonium says greetings. Mr. Atom Blues there. Paul Thomas, Brian's in, Scottish Prepper 73, and NJ660. Good evening, everyone. How are you doing? So, the reason we're doing this podcast is because I received a message, which I'm going to put on from Phil, who is in the chat. He said, get an ex-military person, not me, I'm not, to discuss the current requirements to enlist versus what may be like if we ramped up scaled events of a large conflict and move towards conscription across Europe and what this may look like here. How can the average Brit who may be eligible to prepare to serve so they have better chance to survive? It's quite a long one, but it's interesting. I have done videos on the conscription and stuff before when they talked about national service recently. Yeah. What's your general opinions on the whole national service thing, Andy? Do you think it's a good thing or?
On the main instance, mate, I purely don't think it's affordable. I just don't think on a large scale, mate, even to get it off the ground. I just don't see where the funds will come from.
Right.
So it's a non-starter for me, mate. Really, I don't see. I know why he said it because it's a good headline. It grabs attention.
It was trying to steal some of that. It was trying to steal some of that right-sided voting, wasn't it?
Yeah, of course he was, and he knew he would never have to implement it because he was never going to win. So I knew why he said it. I don't think it. Well, the veteran community I'm part of, through my job and through lads I still talk to, it wasn't well received. Nobody thought it was a good idea. Nobody.
Yeah. So, I mean, if funding wasn't an issue, just generally the concept of a national service in a country, what's your thoughts on that? If it was doable, if it was viable.
I suppose in principle, mate, it's an okay idea. I don't know how. I don't know what you would gain from it, because everybody says to me, I know everyone says, if we had people to go in the army, it would teach them discipline, it would teach them skills, flight, it would teach them X, Y, Z. And true, it does, but that only works if you go with your eyes wide open, and that is what you want to learn. If you tell somebody, right, you're gonna get stuck in there for 2 years, and then you're gonna come out the other side, the likelihood is you're going to do the bare minimum for 2 years, and then come out the other side. You might get maybe, I don't know, maybe 10-20% who'll catch the bug whilst they're in.
Yeah,
they throw themselves into it, and they propel and maybe have a career. But I just. In essence, I don't see what good it would do. I don't think it's a good idea.
As a general concept, I mean, I've always been of the thinking of like it might teach some of these kids some bloody respect, and they had TV shows like The Bad Lads Army in the past, which I mean that's only a tiny percentile, but again, that was based on 1940s, 1950s teachings, so it probably wouldn't be as harsh as that anyway. So. I mean, the questions were centered around, obviously, it could be conscription. So I had a brief look into, like, just to give people an idea. So we had conscription, obviously, for World War II. It was males aged between 18 and 41 who had to register for service. There was exemptions, like medical exemptions, conscientious objectors that had to go to court and prove that. And people working in key industries. But 240,000 people registered for when it was done. In Nazi Germany, same thing, but they had 16 to 60-year-olds and it was called Volkssturm, which was People's Storm. They liked storms. And the USA was 21 to 25. So it's interesting because there's all different thinkings on it. Like people, some are fresh out of school, kids practically, and some are older. I know in Ukraine, they've just lowered it. And now it's from 25 to 60. And the average age of them over there is in the 40s. Now, when our military don't let you join past 36-year-old, I mean, is that, if there was conscription in this country, what kind of, do you think it'd follow the same template as what the military let in now? Or
I think it would be pushed up, mate. I think it would be what it was in World War II. I think it'd be pushed up to 40, 41.
Yeah, because the reserves are 43 now.
Yeah.
So I mean that probably would be a good benchmark for it. Russia, just if anyone's interested, is 18 to 27, 1 year of full active military duty. But yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because everyone's banged on about the numbers of the military. And do you see that as a big issue? Is the drop in numbers an issue, or is it because of the increase in technology?
No, it's due to. So from when I was in it, obviously I left now. I left in 2016, the back end November.
Mm-hmm.
So even back then, lads were leaving due to quality of equipment, quality of accommodation, lack of funding, and then obviously as that happens, the number drops. Then you've got less people to do more of the work. So then you miss weddings, you miss funerals, you miss your kids growing up, family breakdowns happen. So all of that combined is why the numbers drop. And then also, mate, you had the weird, like, coming together of Afghanistan finished, and lads wanted to be in the army and be on tour because that's what they joined for. So that stopped. Then you had them from off all that high up tempo and all the cool and all the good stuff the lads were doing. They were then swabbing people at Dover in the lorry wagons when COVID and stuff was happening. And then you were doing PPE runs, and then you were covering the strikes when this happened, the strikes when that happened, and you just the lads just became a dog's body. So when there was any problem in the country, it would just be, well, the army can't say no, so we'll just. So the numbers, mate, are never going to increase. Like I say, when I left, it was 69,000. That was the proper number. That was the real number. Everyone knew it in service.
Yeah,
they like to top it up with the reservist number.
Yeah,
they're very keen to sell. We've got 80,000. No, you haven't.
Yeah. Interesting how you can find out the actual real numbers when you're involved with it. How much of that is salary?
You know what it is, mate? I've never ever heard anyone complain about salary.
Yeah, but I mean, it's different. It's a different culture, right? Because you're getting 25,200 right now for a regular, from training, like straight in. You're not spending money on digs or accommodation and food and stuff like that, because it's, I mean, at the early stage when you're a recruit, you're staying in there, right? And you're not spending any of that, so it's kind of good money in that respect. But it can't be enticing to people when the average bin man salary is 29,000. The average traffic warden or cigarette police, you see them walking around with the little cameras on, is 30,000 a year. Train drivers have just got a pay rise, and they're up between 40 and 80,000 a year.
Yeah.
And you're telling me to go and risk my life if there's a potential conflict, and you're paying me 25,000. It's close to minimum wage.
Yeah.
Even if you rank up, a major gets 63,000. So a major in the military is getting less than some train drivers. Is that right?
And if you think of it as well, if conscription got brought in, if like a big world event kicked off and conscription was a real thing, all of those wages would be dropped.
Yeah.
Because of the sheer amount of people. So even like you said about wages, mate, you wouldn't be getting anywhere near that if conscription was a real thing.
I just think it's insane. I think to avoid something like conscription, though, you've got to entice people to go in there in the first place, right?
Well, not
And if we can give junior doctors a pay rise, if we can give the nurses a pay rise, which, you know, hats off, they do a good job. I'm not slating anyone. But then train drivers and people like this, if everyone's getting all these wage rises for the cost of living, why are our lads not?
Good question, mate. It's a good question. Like I say, I left in 2016 for all the reasons we've just outlined. Yeah. I really don't understand why lads stay in. So some lads I still talk to now, and they tell me it's got even worse since I left. And I think to myself all of the time, why on earth are you still in?
Do they have an answer when you ask them that?
No. And no. I think at a certain point, mate, so if you get to your 12-year point, then you're at your half pension point. A lot of lads think, well, if I've done 12, if I do another 10 and I've completed my service, there's my full pension, and I get that as soon as I leave. And that also gets drilled into you from the old and bold, from the people who were on the brilliant pension. Like when I went through, I think my pension changed maybe 3 times. I think my pension mate now is worth like £20 a bag of Skittles. It's worth nothing compared to what the lads who were on like the original 1975 pension were. So that gets drilled into you when you first join, or staying for the 22, you get your full pension immediately when you leave. But I don't think it's worth that anymore, man. I think it's still there's still a. It was weird when I was a mate, because you had my generation, and then you had like I say, the people on the 75 pension, the old and bolds, the old sweats. Whereas now, I would think, mate, they would all be gone, and it would be my generation now who would really be leading the charge and then being backfilled by the younger generation. But when you ask them the question why you're still in, it's just crickets. Like there's no. You know,
it's because it's all they know, practically.
Yeah, pretty much, mate. Yeah, and I think there definitely is.
Why did you join in the first place then?
Well, because I want to go on tour. I want the medal.
All right. Okay. So you literally for the action side of things.
Yeah, 1,000,000%. But yeah, like so when I joined in 2009, Iraq was still on. Even though when I was in basic training, I think they pulled out of Iraq in 2009. So the only operation that was on after that was Afghanistan was still on. So the first unit I went to, they got pulled out rotation, so I left. Then I went to 40 Reg in Northern Ireland. After that, they got disbanded through cutbacks. And then after that, you put like a triple P in, where you say where you want to go. Yeah. And at the time, I said I just want to go. Who's ever going to Afghanistan next? I didn't care what job it was. I'd retrain, whatever it would be. And at the time, 39 Regiment up in Newcastle, we're going every 6 months. So I got posted there. I think I got there in the September, and I went to Afghan in the March. So my sole reason for going was to go on operational tours and to get a medal, and that's what I did.
Was that for the thrill of it, or was it a sense of patriotic duty? What?
Probably, I'll probably say a mixture of the two, mate. Especially when you grow up, mate, and you watch things like you watch things like Black Hawk Down, maybe to a certain extent Saving Private Ryan. When you watch all those war films and you see the camaraderie and you see what goes on over there, and you're fighting for, I suppose, mate, when you're younger and you're more idealistic, you think you're fighting for a bigger cause.
Yeah, I'll show my age. I think I grew up watching Soldier. Do you remember that one?
Yeah, I do.
The reason I mentioned the patriotic duty, 4x4 fellas put in the comments, which is quite interesting. Great topic. I'll put my 10p in. Why would anyone fight for a country that puts the bottom of the pile if you're British? The school have feminized men, and now they would want men. So, I mean, is there a generation of people come through that are just not suited to military lifestyle? And is there any sense of patriotic left? You know what I mean? It just seems to have. I don't get that same vibe, even from the lads I know that served longer anymore.
Yeah,
I want to rejoin the reserves because for fitness purposes and stuff like that, for the challenge. There's no patriotic. It just feels like it's not that anymore.
And I agree with you, mate. I don't feel like that. I don't feel like there's an over sense of patriotism in there in the country, especially from younger generations. But I mean, I suppose I would probably say I was patriotic until until I maybe went to Afghanistan. And then it quickly becomes a case of it's all about your mates. That's what the cause is. Like not one single person, whilst I was in, cared about why we got sent. I never saw anyone care about it. I never saw anyone have a conversation about it. It purely turns into mate. The minute you're there and things start blowing up and, you know, shit starts getting real, it purely becomes about the lad you're there with.
Yeah,
and how tight the bonds are. Purely that is all it's about.
Yeah,
Yeah,
once you finish once you're serving somewhere, you ask anybody over there why they're there. They're there because their mates there, because they're looking after them. You know, it's for each other is the reason, right?
Yeah.
Miss Worm says can't see a lot of young men agreeing to go. They'd prefer prison.
Yeah, I agree, mate, with that. I think that's a true statement.
Yeah, it's scary because I think even conscription, it's like you've got to have the right attitude going in, right? It's not something you could force on people because you know yourself in the first basic training, 13 weeks.
Yeah,
there's dropouts galore, right?
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah,
and it's because it's not suited. So if it was conscription, if it was forced, how do you police that? How does that even work?
That's what I was saying about national service. National service, I could see working in a way because you could just bumble through for 2 years, come out the other side and just crack on with your life. But like you say, mate, conscription, you're forcing, you're not going anywhere. Like they're not letting you leave. So your whole mindset and your whole mind frame, like if we go back to the original question, was it Philip who asked it?
Yeah.
When he was saying, what can you do to give a better chance of surviving? Your entire mindset and mind frame would have to shift into I am giving this 110% and I'm giving it everything. And I'm giving everything to the cause effectively. And I'm going to be a sponge and I'm going to learn off all the lads who've learned, who've been everywhere. Because I would be back if it was conscription. They'd have me back in the shot. So it would be all of the, and you would have to make your mindset would be, if you want to survive it, I'm going to have to throw myself in 110% and learn everything I can and be a sponge.
Yeah. Collar on to the people that have that experience already.
Yeah, 1,000,000%.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to prep for a mental shift like that, though, right? He was obviously asking from a prepper's perspective, and I'm not sure what you could do now for that theoretical situation, right?
So I suppose that the important thing to realize about conscription, mate, for people like Philip, he would probably be, when I was talking today with the other veterans I work with, he would probably be maybe on like the fifth mobilization. So the way it would work would be, so like everyone who's in the regulars now, they would all get brought back to the UK from wherever they are in the world. That would be the first mobilization, we'll call it.
Yeah.
The second one would be all the reserves would get called up.
Yeah.
And they would go. Then it would be anybody who's left the army. I say army, but I mean Army, Navy, RAF.
Yeah.
Anybody who's left the army in the last 4 years would get immediately recalled back up. Then you would have anybody like me who's been out longer than 4 years but still on retained service. And then once all those four tranches had been sucked back in, then you would start looking at people like Philip for conscription. That's the way me and the other veterans arm with see it working. So obviously it would take maybe say you would give me 6-week refresher and basic and probably, and then for me to go back and do exacta, you're probably looking at another 6 to 8 week refresher on that. So you would, for someone like me, you could get me back into the fight in say 3 months.
Yeah.
But someone like Philip, you're looking at a year.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the training times are interesting as well if you look at a lot of them, because some of the World War II ones were 60 days. And the Ukraine at the moment, I believe, is 3 months, but they're even starting to fast track some of them.
Yeah.
And the commanders over there saying we're getting people coming through to the front who can't shoot, can't they can't do the basics. Yeah. So it's scary because the amount. So obviously, for people that don't know, you've got your basic training, right?
Yeah.
And you've got your phase 2.
Yeah.
And then you've got your phase 3, which your phase 2 is like your I can't remember the actual words they call it. It's like your trade, right?
So when I was in, mate, it was called trade training. So I did 14 weeks basic training, which is just short soldier and stuff.
Yeah.
And then I went to Larkhill in Salisbury, which was like home of the artillery. Yeah. And I think I was there for maybe 6 months, and that was trade training where you would do like signal stuff, Land Rover conversion, and all that stuff.
I made a note of it. They call it specialist training now. That's
specialist training, yeah.
And now phase 3 is career training. With that in mind, is basic training all you would give for conscription?
Well,
because it's the soldiering that is what's needed, right, at that stage.
Well, I suppose, mate. So if they just wanted, if you were just looking at infantry, potentially you could get away with maybe I wouldn't say 14 weeks, but maybe you could get away with say 20 potentially. Yeah. If so, that's just infantry combated like purely in a box.
Yeah.
When you start looking at other trades, mate, you're looking at artillery, engineers, air corps. You can't really. You're not going to be able to get down, mate, to less than. Obviously, everything's going to get cut down, mate, aren't you? Because you're on the war footing, so everything's going to get shortened. But you can't really shorten things like. So obviously, I was missiles. You can't really shorten the process and the time you need to learn how to do missiles. Same with, I suppose, light gun maybe, but then we're getting in like depths of things people might not know. So infantry, mate, you're correct. You could probably do that a lot quicker. But the other trades and the other things you might need would still take time, which is why you would get people like drawn back in.
I'd like to hope the trades would be covered by the regulars and they're just recruiting for grunts at that point. You know, it's a scary thing to. I mean, so the government said that they wouldn't do this when it was all getting tipped that it could happen a while back when it all started kicking off. And they said they'd never do that. But can they say that? I mean, I'm sure that somebody probably said they'd never do it before World War II, right? They can't.
Potentially
going to do it.
I mean, I can see why there's. I can see why they've said it, mix. I know they said, we were talking about this the other day at work. Rishi Sunak originally said, didn't he was going to up the budget to 2.5%, which is what NATO wanted. And that extra 0.2% was meant to be for technology. So it was meant to be cybersecurity, it was meant to be extra money on drones, all the stuff that modern warfare needs. Now, I saw last week, I think it was, Keir Starmer said he's not doing it to 2.5. He's ruled that out. And not only that, he's reducing it from 2.3 to closer to 2. So not only are we not getting the new stuff, we're also not getting enough money to maintain what we have. So the first thing that's going to go is the lads. There has to be another round of redundancies. If you're not giving them the money to keep it as it is, naturally, like when I was in it 2014-ish, we had a big round of redundancies. So I can see why the rule conscription out, because the couldn't be skinned. Yeah. And it's not like we said earlier, mate, about wages. It's not even wages. It's having the money, mate, and the infrastructure to arm people with weapons, to clothe them. The amount of accommodation, mate, and camps the army have sold off. And again, I appreciate we would be on a war footing, but to get all of that done would just be, I can't fathom it. I haven't got the imagination to see how much money and infrastructure and manpower that would take for conscription to be a viable option. Yeah.
Yeah. It's it's all pie in the sky, obviously at this stage, but I mean, if it gets to the point of conscription, then money's got to be diverted from everywhere else, right? Because at that point, the only time you're talking about conscription, right, is if we're under direct threat. It's got to be. We can't do conscription because he's pushed into Poland. It just wouldn't happen like that.
Well, it's strange, mate, because obviously if you went to Poland, then you've got NATO would kick in, wouldn't it? So every nation in NATO would kick in. And then I suppose you would think of, so if every nation in NATO kicks in and everybody is in the same position we are, then where do we get our ammo? Where do we get our clothing? Where do we get all the stuff that we would need, every other country needs? And then you start thinking, even if we do divert funds centrally and say, right, we're going to pull back, everything's going to get stripped back, all that money's going to the MOD. The MOD is like, great, we've got, say, for example, £1 trillion. Right, we'll get it from here, from there, from everywhere. Every other country's like, well, we're closing doors, mate. We're in the same boat as you. We need our resource. So that's why I can see why they've said conscription's ruled out, because it's just too much of a
I mean,
logistical nightmare.
Yeah, to plan it is. I mean, but I mean, if you're forced into that situation, I mean, people have got to remember through. If anyone's seen the parks where you've got the little half wall and it's got them studs, and you wonder why they've got them studs, they were railings they cut down to use metal for planes. That's the stage we got to. People handing in pots and pans. So if you had to, I mean, things come together that way, right? But I mean, back to a prepper perspective of it. I mean, my first answer when I saw that question would instantly went to fitness, which everyone in the comments now is just going to hide, because you don't mention fitness to preppers. They don't like it. But I thought fitness is one of them, right? Because if it got to the point where they're drafting people in, you're going to have to pass a medical, right? Which is basic general. It's your health in general. But if you pass the medical, but you're overweight or you're not fully fit and stuff like that, are they still going to ask for 8.3 on the bleep test or whatever they're doing now? Or is it going to have to be like we're letting everybody in, even the unfit private piles?
Good question, mate. I would imagine, like you said, if it's conscription, some standard somewhere is going to have to drop, isn't it?
Massively, because I know people that want to be in who have failed the bleep test. I know people that want to be in that have failed the medical based on a skin condition that's very controllable. You know what I mean? It's picky at the moment, kind of.
So when I spoke to the lads today, I spoke to 6 of them, 7 including me, and the top is my book. First time I've ever made notes of this.
Come prepared. I love it.
So the first one, mate, out of all 7 of us was fitness. That was the first. And it was instant, mate, as well. It was the first thing that came. Like, it wasn't like, oh, let me think. When I asked the question, it was like fitness. So if we're dealing it purely on fitness, like when Philip said, what's the best, like if you want to come out the other side, obviously you need a large element of luck. But if you're fit, mate, that means high pressure and high stress situations are easy to deal with when you're fit.
Yeah, getting the fuck out of Dodge is you know.
Exactly, the amount of respect that being fit gains you in the army, and how much leeway that gives you if something else isn't right. So, say for example, if you're not great at hanging uniform, the instructors might give you a hard time, and the lads might give you a hard time. But if you're on fizz and you're going absolutely balls out, and you're at the front, and you're in the top, say the top 5% in PT for your platoon or your company, the amount of respect you have, mate, even though you can't use an iron, and the amount of pressure that takes off you if you're in conscription, the one thing you're in control of, mate, is being fit. And everything, I can't emphasize enough, mate, everything is so much easier if you are fit. Yeah. Especially in that environment.
Yeah, definitely. And any sort of adjustments to the status quo, if you're fit, it's easier to handle. If you're suddenly thrown into a situation and you've got a 24-hour ration that has to last you 72 hours, your body can handle it better, rationing and stuff like that when you need to, if you're fit. So fitness was the first thing I thought of, but then I was trying to think outside of. Let's go to your list then. What kind of other things before I mean, I've got my little list here that I came up with myself, but I'd love to know from, obviously there's a range of people there.
Yeah. So the second one, mate, was mindset. Like I know we spoke about earlier, and how do you switch your, and I asked the question as well, because when they said, I know what I thought about the answer, but when I asked them, I said the same thing as you of, how do you tell a civilian who's never had any inkling of ever wanting to join the military? And they said no. So what their answer was, if you're to be in conscription, you have to, like we said earlier, your mindset has to be, I'm giving this 100% of my attention, dedication, belief.
Yeah.
So that has to be your mindset going in, like it was for me, because that's the only way you're going to get the other side. The instant you start getting cold, wet, tired, hungry, if you don't have that 100% belief in what you're doing and how you're going to come out the other side, you're not going to get through the other side of the potential thing we're talking about. Because if you can't handle it when you're training, you're definitely not going to be able to handle it when it's worse on the other side, and potentially wherever in the world you would go. So mindset was the second one, but more so that's like you say, you can't really prepare your mind for something, for what you're going to see, what you're going to have to do. It's just, you can't do it.
Yeah. A lot of people's only perspective of this would be movies and TV and
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah.
And just on the movies front, one of the notes I put is don't go in there with the mindset of I'm Rambo.
Yeah.
It's never the case. You work closely with the people you're with, listen, do, and hesitation can cost lives. So honestly,
Yeah.
if you're with experienced NCOs, anything like that, if they say something, do it first and then think about it afterwards.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, that would be the mindset side of things from that. I put down here, if things like if you were genuinely thinking about this, like if his questions spurred from a genuine fear of like,
Yeah.
I might be conscripted, how am I going to handle it? What do you think about mil sim games like airsoft and stuff like that? Obviously paintball's a bit of a laugh and it's a bit of a lark, but with things like airsoft, not so much shooting BBs at each other, but the cover and the concealment side of things, the tactical side of things, could that play an advantage to you?
Mm. So,
or is it like when a cadet joins and they think they know everything and you've got to rub all that
out? my only issue, mate, with that would be if you go to a Milsim event and you have a lot of people there who've never implemented camera concealment for real and know what the risks are if you get found, and they're going to teach you, even if they teach you 2 or 3 bad habits that stick with you, then when you go in and an instructor tries to teach you from fresh and implement the way it should be done, if you then carry those 2 or 3, when we're under stress, everything goes out the window to a large extent. So if you're under pressure or a high stress environment like you would be in conscription, and something that your instructor told you to do, you're struggling to remember, but then a really bad habit from one of those Milsim games pops into your head, you do it, and the ultimate bad thing happens. That would be my only fear. But by all means, we've got Milsim, have fun, get fit, run about like a lunatic. All of that is great. But camera concealment and learning tactics and all that type of stuff from a Milsim event. I mean, if it was purely run by veterans and it was run by a real good team of lads who spent, say, a decade together, they were well drilled, well-oiled machine, you know.
Yeah, you can find teams like that.
Yeah, you can. Yeah. But then again, mate, you would have to find that team, and you would have to wade through the bullshit of people telling you this is really what you should do. No, this is what you should do. So
yeah. Some 25-year-old kid who claims he's in the SAS. And
for me, if it was me, mate, and someone was genuinely concerned about conscription, I would tell them to stay away from it and wait till you join. And the blokes who do tell you, who are teaching you, will be the top 10%. That's what it always used to be. So the top 10% of the British Army will be the ones teaching you what you need to know. So I would just hold off on the Milsim and just wait till the guys who know and do have the experience teacher it.
Yeah, I mean, like, obviously the thing is about preparing, right? And
yeah, but I appreciate this, but also, as we were talking before, there's good prepared and there's bad preparation.
Yeah, it's now, like it's like a driving instructor trying to teach somebody who's been illegally driving for a year and they're cruising around with one hand. They've got all it's harder to get the habits out. I 100% get what you're saying. Let's quickly go to the comments before I lose track, because there's been loads and I'm just ignoring people. Mark says, coppers be like, you're under arrest for possession of 20 Benson edges, you far right bastard. I like that. Some of this is going to be completely irrelevant, but we'll just go through. A lot of them are talking about the weapons that you can have in this country at the moment. Speaking of weapons, I mean, that sounded wrong, but Painted Prepper Airguns is here. If you've not subscribed to him, go and check out his channel. He's got some really cool stuff, especially if you're interested in the kind of stuff that you can do in this country without getting the old bill on your back. Let's scroll down, see if anyone's actually on topic, or they're just having, sometimes they just have their own conversation. Does the government prepare website help conscription if people actually take notice of it? I don't think it mentions it on that. Not that I'm aware of, because obviously they would never want to acknowledge that it could happen, right?
Yeah, I don't think it would ever be on there, mate.
No. I mean, it might be on there the day after they announce it's happening. There might be a page in the background. But I tell you what I think is a good. I disagree with me. I mean, you can argue with me on this one if you want, Andy. But what I would say is a good prep for this is start the initial process you would if you were going to join the army. And just bear in mind, recruiters are salespeople, right? So,
Yeah.
but if you can just get the initial media, they give you a lot of stuff of like how to get ready, how to train properly, how to eat properly, things like that. All this media is available of like get army ready. So if you went into a recruitment office and even if you're a bit older, you said, "Oh, I'm thinking of joining the reserves, but I'm not sure I'm ready yet. What can I do?" They will help you. They will guide you down that path. Did your guys have many more in the list?
So the next one, mate, was boots. Buy your own boots.
Right. Okay.
So
so they are molded to your feet already, and you don't have that initial.
Yeah. So ever since obviously basic training, mate, you have to wear what they give you. But the instant I was out with that, mate, I had Altberg sneakers for pretty much the 8 years I was in. I wore Altberg, and I bought my own boots. I bought my own boots every year. Every time they wore out, I replaced them. The boots you get given in the army, mate, are absolutely horrendous. Like, and I see everybody online now, mate. So we know they get given Akus and they get given.
I've been told they're a lot better. I mean, I was 2000, 2001. So
I tell you what, mate. So at the prep meet, I will bring my Altbergs that I bought from the factory in Yorkshire. Yeah. And I will get hold of a pair of issued Altbergs from the army, and you will see they are night and day between. So quickly for the guys in the chat, the Akus and the Altbergs, the MOD went to each respective company and said, how much would it cost for us to fit our lads out and our girls out with Akus and Altbergs? Obviously, the number maybe was in the hundreds of millions. So the MOD were like, yeah, that's not happening. But however, how much would it cost if we used the trademark of your boot and we got like how you build the boot? How much would it cost for that?
Materials.
And they said, well, say for example, I don't know, about £1 million. Oh yeah, we'll do that. So then what they did was they had that, and then they shipped it off, mate. I think the Altbergs were made in Slovakia at one point. So when the boots come back over, mate, they're not made at the factory in Yorkshire. Everyone thinks they are, and everyone on the surplus market thinks they're great. But if you actually had an issued pair of army issued Altbergs, and then you get the real Altbergs from the factory in Yorkshire, you will see the glaring difference. Now, the reason why all the lads said buy your own boots is because if your feet, mate, are in clip and they're really hurting, everything else goes out the window. That's all you can think about is the pain. You're not going to think about patrolling. You're not going to think about where the enemy is. You're not going to think about anything else other than my feet are in clip.
And how can I walk and not hurt? Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's a great one. Feet, always feet. Socks and boots are key.
Yeah.
And I believe, Andy, you're going to do that at the Scottish Prepper meeting. Go through a
yes, mate. I always see, mate. Everyone focuses on bug out bags and all the Gucci stuff that everyone's into, and I appreciate, I'm doing that one as well, because that's what everyone wants to know. But everyone always, and I always see as well, mate, like in certain comment sections where people are like, well, what boots should I wear? What boots should I wear? What about leather over Gore-Tex or leather over synthetic? So I thought, because I've got that many boots, I'll just bring 10 different types of boots, explain the benefits and like the pros and cons for each boot, what might work for me, might not work for you, how to take care of your feet, what you actually do with blisters. And I think that's a good one for people to take away.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one. Scottish Prepper Meet. All the details are on the channel. Don't miss out. 50% sold out already.
Oh, happy days.
That's not bad for the first 2 weeks of launching it. It's not until next year. In the comments, Philip said, "Isn't Labour cutting R&D for the military?" Well, if the percentages are right, then there'll just simply be no money there for R&D. We won't even have enough for maintenance, like Andy says.
I'm just a quick one to Philip there. I'm sure they're going to give 0.2%, and that was meant to be of GDP, and that was meant to be purely for technology and R&D, like Philip said. But that's been squashed now. Labour have took that back. Yeah.
Excellent. So that and the pensioners' winter allowance. Let's not get too political. There might be people in the chat that love the Labour Party. Scottish Prepper 73 says, I'm 50, so I'm okay. Well, you say that, but this is what we said at the beginning. Conscription in Ukraine now goes from age 25 to 60. So you might not be out the woods if it got to the real SHTF situation. You know, pensioners can be dangerous as well. Well, I mean, do you think them benchmarks for the military? This is just a general question now.
Yeah.
So what is it? I want to say 36. It's gone off my notes now. Is it up to 36? Isn't it in the regulars to join? It's like from.
I don't know, mate. I was purely going off what you said. I mean, I was at an army rugby match a couple of months ago. It was the Army North versus Premier North, so it was like Army versus Civies.
Yeah.
And they had naturally, mate. There they had like those. What's what I'm looking for? Like those mobile trailers where you recruit people from.
Yeah.
And I went to the bar to get a drink for me and my partner, and on the way back, I got chatting to a couple of lads, and purely out of interest, I said, "Oh well, can I join the reserves?" And they went, "Oh, how old are you?" And I was like, "I'm 35." And they're like, "Oh no, you're too old." And I'm like, "What?" And they were like, "Yeah." They said, I couldn't be any older than 32 years and say 3 months before my first day of training.
Right. Yeah, so I've got this up here now, and this is from the Army website. Now, The government website is even different. I'll go into that in a second. But the Army website itself says you can join the regulars from 18 to 36-year-old.
All right, okay.
If you don't apply to join and get enrolled before your 36th birthday, it's too late.
Yeah.
You can join as a junior, 16 to 18, the Army Foundation College in Harrogate. Yeah. And the reservists are 18 to 43. So, I mean, I don't know if that's changed recently or anything like that, but yeah, it's, do you think the 18 to 36 is the original question is, do you think that's a bit embedded in the past? Because, I mean, I know a lot of 40-year-olds are fitter at 40 than they were when they were 20. Yeah. So do you think that should be changed?
Well, I think that the whole reason it was ever capped at 40 from my thing is because if you joined at 18 and your contract was for 22 years, that took you to 40. I think that's the only reason it was ever capped at 40. I don't think, like, so my boss at work did 32 years. Like, he left and he was in his 50s.
Yeah.
So there's always scope, mate, for it to move. But like you say, I don't think a lot of lads left at 40 were fitter than some of the 17, 8-year-olds who come through. So there's no reason why. I mean, but like we say, one of the lads at work, he's over fighting in Ukraine, and he's 55.
Yeah,
and he's turbo fit. So like you say, it probably just need looking at if you need to recruit numbers, and you need
but even in peacetime, if we've got an employment problem, why not open that up from up to 45-year-olds? As long as you can pass the fitness test, right? That's what should matter.
No, I agree, mate. Yeah, I'm not opposed to it.
Yeah. It's mad. If we would need to, would it conscript? If we would need to, it would be conscript or die. So they'd run Poland, and they'd think they'd rely on that. I think he's saying the conscription would be like if they were knocking on our door, right? That's what he's saying at that point. But that brings me down to that whole civilian army. The training civilians to just have like I think it's Sweden, where they have a bit of basic training, and then they all have a rifle and a clip of ammunition in the house.
Yeah.
What do you think about that as opposed to a conscription thing? Just that, I mean, that's just preparing the nation better, right?
I suppose so, mate. I suppose if you were, so say for example, if you were like Finland or Poland or one of the Baltic countries who were close to Russia, and you had a land border with them, I can see that being an extremely valuable thing. But for us to be invaded and for that to be needed, I mean, I'm not opposed to the idea, mate, but I don't know how many people will be comfortable in the country if you said to them, "You've got to have a weapon, you've got to have a rifle and ammo in your home." I don't know how many people would. I would be. I'd happily take it, but I don't know how many people would be comfortable with that as a.
Yeah. Philip's also asked on the mental side of things, how do you prepare for high pressure, having people shout at you, waking up at 1 a.m., cold showers? You could, that list goes on, Philip. You could say corridor bee stings, you know, getting the wrong side of the MPs and having a paste stick shoved into your ribs. There's no, I don't think there's a mental preparing for that, because even as you're going in as a new recruit, if you've gone through the careers office, they don't sell that side to you. They sell the dream of traveling and all that lot. So it's just a case of how you handle it, right? It's not something you can prepare for. Or do you think it is?
I think maybe there's an element of like people shouting at me. I used to get shouted at all the time when I was younger. So like when you know, if people were screaming and shouting at me and ripping my locker to pieces, that never fazed me. It was you know what I mean? It was over in 5 minutes. You might get beasted, you might get push-ups, you know, you might get some type of punishment. But that's over in 5 minutes, mate. As soon as the instructor gone, you'd be with the lads laughing. Do you know what I mean? Of who got done over the most. So being shouted at, mate, I don't think is really that big of a problem for most people. I think people build up in their head to be something that it's not.
But so it's there for a reason, right? If you joined the army and you weren't shouted at and you weren't beasted and stuff like that, and then you've gone from a lovely everyone's happy, everyone's friend, now go to war, it's not going to end well for anyone.
To be fair, mate, I you know, I've got a weird viewpoint of the army anyway. When everyone says the army gives you, you know, the army gives you discipline, I don't think it does. I think you join, and if you join and you join in with the mindset like I had, and a lot of lads who I said with had, you went in there wanting to be a soldier and wanting to be the best at it. So you were already disciplined. They just give you the tools and told you what to do. So you applied discipline you had onto that. If you don't have discipline, the army don't teach me; they just get rid of you.
Yeah,
and people get that confused with. So, like, say the screaming and shout, mate, didn't face any of the lads who passed because we wanted to pass. All it is, mate, it helps weed out a lot more. All the stuff the army does, mate, is really to weed out people they don't want. The lads who really want to pass and who are really good enough to pass will put with whatever you want. It's the lads who, you know, like Philip said there, if you don't like being screamed and shout with that, if you don't like cold showers, if you don't like the beasting, you'll be gone in the first 4 weeks. That's when most of the harshest stuff happens, and that's to get rid of the people who don't want there. Once they're gone, the attitudes of instructors change, and the longer you get there, and the more respect you earn from them, the easier it becomes.
Yeah, we had a bombardier literally in the first week who was pretty like chilled compared to most of the others, and he turned around and said, listen, the first 5-6 weeks is to completely break you down, because we want to build you back up into something. You want to make you into something. So he's like, just get through that. So, which they don't usually put their arm over your shoulder and say stuff like that, but you know, sometimes you get it.
I mean, just in response to Philip's question there, though, mate, like when he's asking about the mindset of how do you deal with that. Again, if you go in with the mindset of I'm going to give it 100% here, and whatever they ask me to do, I'm going to smash it. I'm going to put in all the effort I can. I'm going to try and do the best I possibly can. If you can last, mate, those 6 weeks, all of that stuff, mate, becomes like second nature to you. So after the 6 weeks, mate, they'll be like, right, jump in that cold shower. And Philip would do it, and it wouldn't even phase him. So if you get past the initial, like, first 6 weeks shock or capture type thing, your mindset, I mean, to be fair, mate, after the first 2 weeks, your mindset's already shifted that much.
Yeah.
You know, it's quick. It's quick how fast it can change it.
Yeah. It's a tried and tested. There's a reason we're one of the best trained armed forces in the world, to be fair, and we train other countries for that very reason, because it works. One thing I did note here was, because of obviously we're talking to preppers, not always military people, not always patriotic people. If you really didn't want to do it and it was a conscription, then my advice then would be research the exemptions, because there's always exemptions in these cases. And I'm not saying go and maim yourself or drop a railway sleeper on your leg, but like conscientious objectors, stuff like that. If you really wanted to avoid it, there's a route.
Yeah, but I mean, we were talking about exemptions, mate, earlier, weren't we? So, say for example, mate, if every single public service we have is crying out for people, isn't it? So you hear all the time, NHS strapped for people. If you were the NHS, mate, and you were a porter or a cleaner, you'd be exempt. You know what I mean? If you went in the police force, exempt, fire brigade, exempt, and farming, you know what I mean? Probably rail would probably make you exempt because that would be like a vital national infrastructure. So if you didn't want to, there would probably be 5 or 6 professions that would automatically rule you out if you didn't want to.
Yeah,
if
it's
you
a good
want
idea.
to do it.
Make yourself. What's the word I'm looking for?
Yes. What we need to do is you need to make yourself
indispensable.
Integral. Yeah, you make it integral to the running of the country.
Yeah.
So they don't take you to fight.
Yeah. I'm off my list. Have you got any more from them?
What else did they have? So a couple of them said equipment, buy your own equipment. But the only thing that I thought was really worthwhile, mate, on that, when they were talking about that, because obviously the people I asked were from probably from 7 different camp badges. So some people were saying buy this, some people were saying buy that, but it would purely depend massively on camp badge, mate, what trade you were going to, that type of thing. But what everybody would need would be dry bags. Like quality dry bags. Like if you took say you took 10, your life, mate, would be incredibly that much easier.
But do you think at that level they would be letting people bring in their own stuff? Because if we're talking conscription, we're talking.
I think, mate, if we're talking conscription level, like Philip's question was, I think if you rocked up with your own boots, there would be like, thank fuck he's brought his own boots. That means we've got another set spare for the bloke behind who hasn't brought any. I think if you were on exercise and you had your own dry bags, the instructors would be like, switched on, let him use them, because where he's going to need them potentially. So I think, mate, a lot of rules that we apply in peacetime would massively go out the window if it was conscription. Right. I think they'd let you take whatever you wanted. You could rock up with an Arctic smock. You could rock up with a pimped out PLC Bergen. I reckon you could turn up with whatever you wanted, and uniform and everything would go out the window in a conscription scenario.
Yeah, he's just mentioned there, uniform made in China. Do we have enough here if conscripted? I think in that kind of situation, you're looking at a wartime economy, Phil, and you'll be amazed how many companies would turn into military production companies. Yeah, they wouldn't be producing Louis Vuitton bags; they'd be producing slings. For
I think the only problem would be, mate, would be getting. So I agree, mate. We could make all the uniform we wanted here. It would be getting hold of like multicam material or wherever you were going in the world. It would be physically getting hold of the material to make the uniforms would be the issue.
To start up all them cotton mills around me again, you know, get the industry back. This is the only problem with getting rid of all your industry. You're heavily reliant on everyone else, right? Yeah. That's just why some people want the steel industry back for that very reason, right?
Yeah.
I'm 65 in a few weeks. I'm not in Ukraine either. I think you're covered, Kelly. You'll be safe. You'll be safe. I'm just going through the comments. If you've got any more on your list, feel free to jump in. I'm just going to scan through and see if there's any further questions in here. Did they have anything key to jump on other than the ones that you've mentioned, Andy?
The only other thing, mate, somebody said was, I think maybe 2 of them said map reading. I mean, they said it, mate. So, like, I'll tell the audience they said map reading, but you know, I suppose you could, mate, if you wanted to, if that made, you know, if you felt more prepared going in, go do a map reading course or.
There's little things you could learn that will never go amiss. Not only for military, not only for conscription, or if you just wanted to join, but as preppers in general. I would recommend phonetic alphabet. Morse code. It looks complicated. It's really not once you get used to it. And what was the other one? I was going to say something. The map reading's a cracking one because it's a dying art. Everyone's so reliant on sat navs now. Yeah, map read and Lee, who was just in the comments before, I don't know if he's still in here, does map reading courses at the Bug Out Shop, I believe. And he does little things like that. So that's really cool.
Like you say, mate, if you're going to go with Lee from the Bug Out, or you're going to go with Tom Prepared Pathfinder, if you're going to go from someone who's a military veteran and has done decades of military map reading, then by all means go with them, because the compass is different. You know, in the army we use mils, outside it's degrees. There's all those little types of little nuances that you wouldn't get on a civilian course. But yeah, if you wanted to go with Lee from the Bug Out, or
Yeah, it's a good trade to have, even if we're
Yeah, it
not
is, yeah.
talking about the
I
situation.
mean, to be fair, mate, like if we do the Scottish at the Scottish prep meet, by all means, if anyone wants to come over and they want any things on map reading, I'd be happy to take people through it. I don't mind.
So you're going to be busier than anybody else at this
I know,
meeting.
mate, yeah, I know. You know, looking for punishment.
He's going to be asking for a wage next. Quick run. No. There we go. Good socks and boots. Any written suggestions? I think he's asking people in the comments, but I think, like you say, that I think it's very personal. I know you can recommend boots, but I think it's very personal. I've tried on boots that people have said are awesome, and they've not suited me.
I think sock wise, mate. I think I've always recommended and I've always used 1,000-mile socks, and I know a lot of lads who did some arduous courses with me loved them as well. So I would say 1,000-mile socks.
Yeah,
are a no-brainer, and I still use them now. And boots, I still find it hard to move away from proper Oldbergs, from the Oldberg factory in Yorkshire. I find it hard to beat them, especially if you're looking at a military context as well. I mean, they do both, you know, civilian and military. But for me, 1,000-mile socks and Oldberg boots from Oldberg in Yorkshire would be my two.
Whereabouts in Yorkshire are they?
Richmond.
Oh, right, okay. That's not far from where I work at the moment. Might they got a factory shop, I might go up and have a look.
Definitely makes sense. Definitely worthwhile going in.
Yeah. Right. So, I mean, we're coming up to about an hour, so we're nearly at time. If anyone's got any last minute questions, please pop them in. The last thing I want to say is, because of my obsessive compulsive kind of person I am, doing the research for this and speaking to Andy beforehand, I've ended up applying for the reserves again. And I'm going to rejoin, because I honestly thought at 40 I couldn't join. But yeah, it's put my application through, and I know where I'm going, which regiment, stuff like that. So, and they had all my details from before, which is interesting. So, I want to just say why, more than anything, from a prepper's perspective. If I'm a reservist, I've potentially got access to stuff that I may need come SHTF. Whether you want to say that's socks or a gas mask or whatever, there's a potential there that I might have access to stuff that I wouldn't usually have. Fitness and training, I guarantee you no PT in the gym will be better than military fitness. It's just, I think it motivates you, it pushes you more, and it's more of a practical fitness. It's not display muscles. It is literally core strength, proper fitness. Jump in at any time, Andy, if you disagree. Which always helps with survival, like we said at the start. And to be honest, from a personal perspective, in an SHTF conflict situation, I would rather be proactive defending my home, family, and country than sat in a shed waiting for something to happen. So that's my reasons behind it. So yeah,
I mean, just one minute, you know, before we talked about how to get out of conscription, and we're talking about the exemptions you could have, like different job roles. I suppose, mate, if that wasn't eligible for you, maybe you could. And I know I've spoken to relatives of people who did in World War II. If you can see it going to happen, and you jump the gun and you join the military before conscription happens, you have a lot of say, mate, where you end up.
Yeah.
Now, if you get conscripted, more than likely, if it's that type of situation, you're going to be earmarked in the infantry. If you join before, you have a big window, mate, of what you could join. You could be an engineer, you could be artillery, you could be a loggy. You know what I mean? You could be. There's a lot of options. Or even if conscription was a thing, you could still apply early and dodge where you didn't want to go. Manage your career better.
And if you learn a trade, you're more valuable than Operation Human Shield, you know.
Yeah.
So that's a really good point. So I think we're pretty much covered on that. We've hit the hour mark. I really appreciate you joining, Andy, and speaking to all the people about it as well. And really excited to see what you bring to the prepper meets. That's going to be awesome. You're also doing the Midlands, the big one as well, I believe.
Yes, mate, yeah.
We'll be going to that one as well, so that'll be cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll inform. I'll get you all more details on that one as I get them. But yeah, it's should be cool. Thank you everyone for joining us. I'm just briefly looking. Have you all got messages or just on top messages? All right, okay. They're just talking. They talk amongst themselves in the chat, and they really throw me off. Would you like to say goodbye to everyone, Andy? Final thoughts?
Yeah, really, really interesting question. I haven't thought about anything like that for a long time. And it's really, really, really interesting question. It was good as well to ask different veterans today and see man's ticking over of potential what they would do. Would they be called back up as well? Was a big one. So yeah, really interesting question. And thanks for having me on.
Yeah, superb. Always a pleasure. From me, thanks very much for joining me. Don't forget, like, subscribe, all that wonderful stuff, and we'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.
See you later, guys.